team. As he mentioned, this is a cadet capstone engineering design team that occurred 2 years ago now. We're here in a prop station. These are the cadets that I work with. All of them are now lieutenants in the Air Force, off doing great things. Many of them in the cockpit already. Give you a little background, system overview, and where we're headed there. Our capstone structure at the Air Force Academy here briefly, we've got about 30 different projects going on any given year within the engineering division. It's gone by several names in recent years, but we went out and talked to many different stakeholder communities. Came up with a lot of concepts under Dr. Daniel Jensen at the Academy. He leads a lot of these ideation methods, coming up with upwards to 100 different concepts through a couple of different methods. Everything from inflating boots, and you just jump out, to Ironman suits. Friction descenders, there's a few of those out here, and that can be used for certain approaches. Or simply modification of rope, new gloves, different ropes, different types of boots with friction on the boots. They came up with those broad categories. They decided we want to tackle the auto belay. An auto belay, and the one we got here is made of True Blue up in Boulder. They've got a patent on the auto belay or a current braking system that's used. And if you're not familiar with it, if you ever go to a rock climbing gym, look up near the ceiling. You'll probably see these things up there. It eliminates the need for a rope to go up and back to someone else sitting there belaying you down the wall. An auto belay, you hook into it. If you let go, it'll fall at a constant rate of descent. If you're a big guy like me or someone small, you'll fall at the same rate of descent, because if it tries to go faster, it changes the inner geometry of the braking surfaces to keep a constant rate of descent. In general, that's how auto belay works. But up until we started looking at it, we haven't seen auto belays used outside of the indoor rock climbing gym scenario. So what would it take to put this on a helicopter? So in general, our system looked at how do you interface an existing technology, an auto belay, into a flying helicopter with some stakeholder inputs. If you don't need braking, and one might ask, well, why do you want to brake? The communities we talk to, if you're coming on station over a building or over a ship, and say the vehicle drifts off of the building, or the ship changes where it's at, if that changes at all, you would like to have the ability to brake, or else you're either going to go for a swim or off the side of the building, which is a bad thing. So braking was a key stakeholder need in our needs that rock climbing wasn't really doing anything. The other thing we noticed is, it's not working this one. At the very top of this image here is a quick way to connect it to the existing system, which is called the Fast Rope Insertion and Extraction System, or FRIES. So when I talk about FRIES, I'm not talking about McDonald's, I'm talking about a system that already exists on most military platforms to connect a fast rope to. We decided, rather than redesign the whole inner structure of the aircraft, why don't we connect to the FRIES system, and then that would be useful. And then the last part on the bottom is that whereas a rock climber that's doing something for recreation, when they get down to the bottom or hit the ground, they may be able to have the time and awareness to unhook a carabiner or some other attachment mechanism. They don't want to be there all day, but they've got a little bit of a time and awareness factor. The stakeholders we were talking to wanted to be off it as soon as possible. Once their feet touch the ground, or in some cases a couple inches before, they want to be off because they've got to focus on other things. And so we looked at what's a quick detachment method that's also reliable. Testing video. This just shows a buildup of what cadets and the team, what we went through, going through the year, figuring out what works, what doesn't work. Here you see them struggling with the carabiner and the release. If you've got a package, now you're going to start tipping backwards if you've got a single attachment point. Here he hooked himself to a pull-up bar. Can you unhook the carabiner if it's under tension at the same time? Very, very difficult for these guys. So we quickly realized we need a quick release mechanism. Started looking at a tether that keeps you upright. There's Shane Riley demonstrating his quick release mechanism. Constant rate of ascent, pretty short heights here. We didn't go too high in our initial testing. some load distribution, be able to send 2 operators at once. It changes the paradigm of putting 1 operator on the ground sequentially to maybe we put 2 or put 4 at a go. It's much more of a stair-step function. Here they are testing the brake. One requirement was to have a brake that can work with 1 hand. The operator we talked with would like to have at least 1 hand free for other tasks. And very briefly, I'll walk through. The initial invention is a connection attachment that's push locking. What we found when we talked to the crew members and the maintenance crew for the helicopters is that even with the existing fast rope system, they lug the 60 to 80 pound bag of a fast rope. If it's wet, it can double or triple that weight. They lug it out the aircraft, get it up in there, and have to connect it to the prize bar. This is pretty difficult. Our system with similar weights, but a little bit less. How do you connect this if you only got 2 hands? One, you got to lift up the system, but then connect it. So we quickly realized we want to push locking. We want our system to be able to pick it up with 2 handles, push it up, pull down, and it's ready to go. So that's the crux of this invention here. The next invention is a pulley brake. There's a few different ways to brake webbing out on the market right now. A lot of the brakes on webbing, specifically the flat webbing, are meant for a static brake. I'm going to anchor off while I do some other work, but it anchors. And what we found with that is that with that manner of braking, it was very on or off. Even if we adjusted some of the geometry, if we're sliding down some webbing and we put one of those brakes on, you stop and the dynamic loads to you and the system were pretty bad. So we needed a little bit of an easier onset braking force for our system. What we came up with was this. It's got shoes that brake against a pulley that can be attached with a cable and pulled with 1 hand. In that manner, that worked for our purposes. And finally is the tip-resistant harness with a quick disconnect. There's 2 key parts to this. One is the tip-resistant piece. If we're only connecting ourselves to a cable that's either attached to a seat harness or even a chest harness, if it's only at one point, then it has issues that can probably tip backwards. If you got a 100-pound or pack on your back, you're going to tip. So they wanted to solve that problem. We also wanted to solve how do you get off it fast without too much fumbling around, releasing tension, and things like that. We took a look at what they currently use for parachute harnesses, which is a 3-ring disconnect. It splits the load through use of 3 rings, and with 1 quick pull, you can disconnect yourself. We got some feedback from operators later on in the competition that said our initial Velcro approach to that wasn't desired in the high task environment of a helicopter, maybe at night. If that Velcro comes loose and starts to pull out, that can be a problem. So we wanted a positive disconnect. It uses a thumb latch or an happen to disconnect that. We solved the tip-resistant portion by simply adding an additional link that connects to either a plate carrier or a plate harness or a backpack. It's not to carry your body weight, but to prevent a tipping force, which is much, much lower. Current invention status, there's actually 4 patents pending right now, 1 for each of the inventions and 1 for the overall approach, the overall system. I'll point out again, the True Blue auto belay is not something that we're touching. They have a patent on that technology. We're just using it and integrating it into a flying environment. I think that's it. Pretty short for my presentation. I'm not sure how much time we had. At this point, I'm open to questions, or if you want to wander around and take a look at the prototypes as well. Sir?
What is how many license in the military? How many places will every single helicopter out there or ship? What is the market size?
Right. I'm not sure. I don't have a direct number, but it's used within communities that do prize style insertion or fast rope insertion. In the joint service, different services approach this differently. And we've got some folks who can maybe speak better to the Army. For the Air Force, typically only folks that use fast rope insertion are the special operators community, or not the whole battlefield airmen community, but and the Air Force is somewhat limited. As I understand it, Army Marines are trained for broader units, not just the special forces to use it. Whether they use it all the time, I'm not sure.
Yeah, you're right. What is the quantity? How many, they all are going to use the system, how many would be the quantity?
How many faster? I don't have that number. I can try to track it down and get it back. Or at least a ball.
Or if you could repeat the question, we couldn't hear that.
I'm sorry, the question was, what's the quantity of locations that this could be implemented in? And maybe put another way is, how many fast rope systems do we currently have in place for use or ready to use that this would replace? Fantastic question, something we should probably have had today.
Well, I didn't understand. What is the, if they're going to study it today, okay, you identify the problem, what is the cost of that problem? What is, and so how is this, like injuries? How many mistakes happen? Injuries, mistakes happen, what is the cost? The existing one is what you think the school system can do, what would be the ROI in the system for us when they're using both sides.
To get that idea of what's the benefit quantitatively. Sure.
So I can help you a little bit with that.
Okay.
If you want.
Yeah.
Right now, so we try and sell really faster insertion. Right now, the anecdotal number that got from the grant was there about 10% of users and you on about 1%. It could be higher, but that's what an average of that. And so if you take a look at, so with 100 people going in, 10 of those are making injured on the inside. And if they're in the active deployment zone, then that becomes a big issue because you have people on the ground who are supposed to be fighting and you're out. Right? And so for the active military groups that I work with, most of the purchases are special forces, but there's also, you're seeing more purchases from CEU, Border Patrol, police, people who are insuring their dog, anybody who's using canine will use their ways and have health contracts, they're looking for ways to safely put them down. So I don't know if that helps you, but that's kind of the ballpark. And there isn't like a quantitative number of how many systems are out there.
Has there been any interest at all in the search and rescue community? I'm just thinking particularly like the mountain areas like this where you're trying to move down a mountain with
Not really, because we're trying to get extraction, not just insertion.
Right.
And the faster we learn about insertion, not extraction. And search and rescue is usually about extraction.
I was thinking if you're trying to carry a stretcher or something, if you were able to break with one hand and carry something with another, that would be.
Well, and a lot of times, as I was talking, a lot of times they're going in with gear, and so they will have a user, and then they'll have their 200-pound band, that comes. Or there's an unqualified personnel, so somebody who's not factually qualified, they can then attach it with a doctor or somebody else is going in with a key that they're asking them. They'll sometimes attach it with it. Answer your question.
Yeah, it goes to, and you were talking about too, it seems like this is all about the same people.
Yeah.
But without other things like independent people, it seems like there's not much applications for everyone drops of equipment.
There have been tests done.
But yes, you're right. This is more based around the human. The manipulation of the release and of the brake would require a human, at least currently.
So, watching the video Azure is on like 5 or 6 videos and being a maritime and also like using other way. I can understand the first person going down. I don't understand how do you have a vision for them? Do they all have to have a system or does the just have backwards staff?
Right. That's right. So there would be a delay in getting the retraction. I think True Blue is, when we were working with them, was interested in making an enhanced auto belay that may have certain features that would help that, but currently it would be more of a stair-step function of delivery of people. The delay between people is a little bit greater, but if you size the loads correctly, you can drop 2 or up to even 4 people at a time. And so as you get 4 people on the ground, another 4 people on the ground, as opposed to a 1-1-1 approach. That's the concept, or that's what we're pushing forward with. Some of the groups we talked to, just for weight and balance of the aircraft, it was desired that you're going to take 4 guys with 4 packs on the one side. It may make sense to do a little more symmetric, and so the stair step may increase. Maybe you're getting 3 out of each side, so 6 at one time, or 6 at one time. Well, now the aircraft is pretty large, it only probably needs to be the other time. But it would change. We'd have to change the mindset of how we deliver people out of the aircraft.
Price on their applications for contractors, don't have, just know that they have a project, required to have cell tower, call track, so that's pretty expensive. Have you guys explored any of that in the market or?
We have not. Just off the cuff here, I think there might be some use for the pieces of the technology. I'm not sure that they'd be interested in the auto belay Insertion. But maybe the quick connect connection for it is possible.
Have you tested the blue attachments? Have you tested it on your position, how much is associated, how much
Right. The components we're using, I think the limiting factor right now is probably the fabric connection between the auto blaze and the primary load pad. They looked at that and sized that much larger than one human even with full kit. So that met our needs. We didn't explore much past that. They did use anthropomorphic data to figure out the dimensions that this harness should be to actually keep them upright. And they sized for the nominal users that we can see.
What is the cycle?
You would rest. I'm not sure I can show it. We can take a look as we get back there, and I can show you the basic curves. And part of it depends on what's the height that we're dropping from. You know, if they're dropping from 30 or larger, then it becomes more of a rate question than the cycle time, because that would depend on which elevation they're descending from at the time.
And what's the max height?
So we at the AFRL test site, we tested from 40 feet. A lot of the True Blue auto belays are, I believe, the 60 feet, but they make an XL version which can go up to 90 feet retraction. But our final test in Tennessee with AFRL was 40 feet descent.
Yeah, should we be making a free fall product now?
Yes.
And most of the factors out there are sort of
Right.
primary target. They're used close to the auto.
Right. We looked at the free fall prototype, or at least the concept of that, and what we found from stakeholders is that they would prefer at least some type of positive feedback of connection. Because the free fall model, for those unfamiliar, the auto belay system that True Blue is working on that allows you to connect and drop, and you are in a free fall feeling for the first couple of seconds of that, and then the auto belay kicks in and slows you right down. So it's a fun idea. Most of our guys said, when I jump out of the aircraft, I want to know if I'm free falling because I'm connected or because something went wrong. And so we didn't pursue the free fall model on this one. Right, they've got enough to worry about with that. Okay, if there's no other questions, I'll invite you to check out the prototypes. I can explain any features on those as well. If that's okay with you, Greg, I should ask.
Have that on, and this connection here is this just prevents the tip.
Can you do a demonstration of the quick,
Sure.
quick release where you plug the quick
Disconnect.
quick disconnect, and then also then to reset it.
Okay. Yeah. So in general, when this would already be connected to the aircraft, and so we designed this largely for the maintainers that have to install the system each time. This would be installed either in the aircraft prior to the mission, or if you find that halfway there you realize we're not going to need brake. It's not a building, it's not a tip. So in fact, we want to get rid of this. We're going to connect this directly to our brake. So the brake is optional depending on the mission. But if you do need to install the brake, it just wraps the pulley with the strap here, and you can kind of figure out how it works here with a couple brake shoes. You don't apply as much or a little braking as you need to. Now it's two handles, they tie it together with cable, so we could do it with one hand. But again, if you don't need braking for the mission, then this comes off and you'll connect the auto later. Once
Trying to make that thing work.
you probably could. Since this is an alpha level, there's probably room to install or shrink it, right? They were trying to make sure everything that was designed to come apart and go together was large and easy to manipulate if you had gloves or things. That's right.
In the dark, in the rain.
In the dark, in the rain, when they're when they're focusing on many other things other than get the. So assuming this is all set up in the aircraft, allow the operators. Actually, I'll take it off this way. Can have this on their person already. They may have this connected to the seat harness, this on their shoulder strap, and the only thing that's free hanging is this which they can strap down. So they can approach the aircraft in this configuration. Once they're in the aircraft and they're ready for the mission, they're ready to hop out the door, then it's taking this off, walking over, connecting to the system. When they step off the aircraft into the abyss, which was chosen on purpose, when they step off the aircraft, it's going to descend at a constant rate of descent. Halfway down, they can break the system if they need to, assuming then that they get.
Does it require two hands?
It doesn't. This cable is meant to fit the need of. You can have one so we'll reset. Assuming now you're on the bottom or on the ground, then it's a pull this. That's happening right here. So hit the ground and pull this. We've tested the 2 people. I would recommend 3 or 4, but at that point, then we get into a weight and balance of the aircraft issue. So if you go to that high level, going off of one side, you almost need both sides to go at that same time.
You said you tested it to 40 feet, but I mean, a helicopter's not going to stay at the same altitude in those conditions, so how are you going to handle that?
Well, so the limiting factor then becomes how much tether is, how much belay is in here. These have got 60 feet, and so that would be a limitation on that mission, or they do make a 90 feet, which fast ropes are no worse. You know what size fast rope you're taking on a mission. They've got 60, 90, even up to 120. They've got those fast ropes, but if you're on the mission and you found you needed a 90 and all you brought is a 60, that just means you're probably going to hover a little bit lower.
One thing I'd point out, as large and complex as this looks, the fast rope is bigger.
Right, I should have
fast rope is humongous. It takes up a ton of space. And Mr. Clinky here is pulling out a sample.
Yeah, so imagine 60 to 90 feet of this rope. It comes in it looks somewhat like a duffel bag, is about this high, about this far around. And so they do make bags to carry the fast rope out. Most of the crews we worked with or talked with, they just got a coil of this that they drag out to the aircraft, connect it. If they ever do over mission ops, this absorbs a lot of water, and so it gets heavier and heavier. In training environments, they've got to reset that. They've got to go pick up that fast rope, drag it back to the aircraft, connect it back in operational scenarios, that gets left behind. But most of the use of it right now in training or exercises, things like that, we're trying to recover this large wet mass of fast rope.
Reset that, is it in a bag or?
Typically not. It comes in a bag for storage and in theory transport, backpack style. But usually it's coiled, and when it goes into the aircraft, there's a large loop on the top that connects to the same thing our system would connect to, and then the rest of the rope is coiled and stored right behind the crew portion of the helicopter. Yes. And for Air Force helicopters that need to go on the HH-60s, they have a larger fuel tanks back there, and so there's even less room for Air Force missions for fast rope than, let's say, a slick UH-60.
How long is this?
This one's the 60-foot model, and we have the 90-foot model, but we loaned it to the Rock Climbing Club at the Air Force Academy. It's not much bigger. It's in how they coil this inside.
Why would you want to have a 60-foot?
There's not much. Yeah. If we were to go with this, I wouldn't elect the 60 on purpose. Only that's what I have. And I can't remember. Okay.
330.
Yeah, 330.
Working load, obviously they should be re-engineered.
Right.
But that's like a 300-pound dead weight, right?
Yeah.
Not like tensile.
Well, no, it's working load. So it's taking into account how it's going to be used, which is in a dynamic way. When you actually climb on these, you get to the top of the climb, and there's a bit of you have to have some trust. You let go, and it's milliseconds or half a second before it catches you, because it's using magnetic braking, so you have to get the gears moving and that field created before the braking happens. So it's designed to catch that dynamic. Another point about this device automatically retracts, and I don't know if the users, the pilots or anything ever mentioned that. If you drop the fast rope out, they have to pull it back in before they can fly away. And if it's wet, I imagine that's a huge struggle.
It's pretty heavy.
I would think so.
Yeah, typically when they use fast ropes, the normal procedure is they go ahead and drop it. They don't fly away with it hanging unless they're trying to extract something. So they're always cutting it, dropping it, coming back around. If it's a training or exercise, they're going to come back around, pick it back up.
This device automatically recoils underneath it. Drag itself back up.
What is that? Can you show me again? Maybe reset that?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. So I'll go slow this time. So this just releases. So you pull the yellow cord. As you pull the yellow cord, you notice that strap now becomes untethered, and that strap will release the small ring, which releases the middle ring.